Hey everyone, circa 2021 Kevin here. So modern day kinda, unless you're watching this in the future. That's a nuanced point that doesn't really need to be discussed. So a little context to this, in case you missed our announcement last week. This is our infamous episode 0. It's before really committing to this podcast and putting a bunch of time and structure and gathering equipment into it, we borrowed a cheap microphone, plunked it down on the table between the three of us and just kind of talked in the vague structure of what one of our episodes usually are, just to see if we liked doing this and if there was a future in doing so. The end results aren't great. The audio quality is really bad. I personally find it very cringy, just, listen to quite a few year old recording of myself trying really hard. But here it is for the world to see, in case you're all really interested about this episode. We've actually covered these multi-classes and monsters formally since in much better capacity, but it's kind of a little fun trip down memory lane, a little peek into how it truly all started. So this was never seen the light of day until now. So yeah, enjoy. Unless you're brand new to this show, maybe go listen to some of the other episodes first. And then if you want to see the very, very, very beginning of it all that we thought we'd bury and never ever let out ever again, but here it is out, then come back and watch this. Apparently people want to see this, so enjoy our lost infamous episode 0.
Hello and welcome to our inaugural Session 0 D&D podcast. So this is Tunnel Untie and Roll. We're here to talk about D&D. My name's Kevin. I'm here with my good friend Jared and the guy we tolerate, Will. We've been playing D&D together for years and always find there's not enough time to play. We spend so much time talking about it, dissecting different monsters, character ideas, campaigns. So yeah, we're going to be back here every week. Hopefully get that fixed between your sessions and see how this goes. So Jared, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. And you, Will?
I'm right here.
Best we can ask for.
So we kind of figured it's somewhat open, somewhat casual. We kind of have some segment ideas. We'll kind of pick a cool monster one of us likes. Someone will probably bring a different one to the table every week, dissect it, talk about how it can be played and stuff like that, go into character ideas. We kind of have this idea of where we'll sort of randomly roll at the table here, different multi-class ideas, and just kind of come up with on the spot how we can make that work, how viable it is, and so on. And really whatever we just feel like talking about with D&D, because there's a lot to talk about with D&D, because we're big D&D nerds.
That is true.
That was a lot of D&D in a few sentences.
Maybe it's time to roll up on that class table, I think.
Yeah,
so
that sounds great.
Yeah.
I think we could start off. We're just going to go about this by dissecting a multi-class. So best way to do that is just completely random. So we've got 2 D12s here, and we are going to roll them up. Depending on what we get, we've got our class list in front of us. We're going to pair them together and give some first impressions and see what we can make of it. Hopefully we can figure out some mechanic viability as well as some role playability.
Oh, the dice sound.
We got a 10 and an 8. So that's looking like a ranger and a sorcerer. That's perfect.
Oh, God.
I think you counted wrong. Wait, nope. You counted right.
Yep, I'm great at counting. So,
Of course, it went Ranger.
Counting on air.
ranger and sorcerer. Let's go ahead and hear some first impressions. So, Kevin, what do you think when you hear ranger sorcerer?
Don't do it.
Well, that's
So we got a generally dex-based, I guess you can do strength-based ranger, which neither one of those helps a sorcerer at all.
No, I believe you've played a strength ranger before.
Yeah, it was okay.
He died very quickly.
Oh,
all
yeah,
make
then he got
mistakes.
resurrected a lot.
Yeah.
It was fine. It's fine. And then you got the sorcerer, which is really just cares about charisma.
Yeah.
How
So,
about we start with the character concept?
concept.
Role play this one. Why would you have a ranger sorcerer? I mean, I guess multi-classing anything with a sorcerer kind of isn't easy into it if you go the wild magic route.
Right.
You have the ranger who goes on as an adventurer and gets in contact with some sort of crazy unstable magic power and then infuses him with strong magic that he or she does not have complete control over. And then you get the wild magic sorcerer.
You're not even limited to that subclass. Every subclass of sorcerer is essentially defined by the sorcerer's inability to choose to be said sorcerer.
Just like we did not choose.
It's like I didn't
to be this
choose
multi-class.
draconic bloodline or my phoenix ancestry. It found me. I just wanted to be friends with animals or hunt giants.
Right, which I think really brings up the main thing in my eyes for role playability is can either one come first? Would a person who was, let's say, born as a sorcerer then wish to be a ranger for any reason and vice versa? Do those have any type of meshing?
I mean, they could. If they were born a sorcerer, so they had like the draconic origins or the phoenix sorcerer, which actually I don't think is official, so we probably shouldn't talk about that one.
Oops.
No UA here.
Yes. But yeah, they could reject it. Yeah, there's like the divine soul sorcerers and all that. So most of them, except for Wild Magic Surge, talk about born into it, unless I'm remembering something wrong.
Nope, all of them born into it or touching something that makes them go crazy.
Yeah.
I think with that, we're going to take a short little break here and see if we can look into this and make something viable. Maybe we'll come up with something great and we're going to all feel like big dumb dummies.
The answer is no, we can't, though.
We got to find out.
Yeah, there's nothing. I mean...
I also don't have the updated Ranger in front of me. Was that in...
I think we just need to stick to the books.
Didn't they release it?
Not officially. It was never in anything.
I still haven't finished
It's
fixing
fine.
it, my friend.
That's kind of been like a point of contention with the community at large. They seem really resistant to have two versions of the same class out there, which makes sense.
Well,
So I think it's always going to forever be in that like limbo.
I'm quite proud of having a class that no one can effectively play in combat.
Well, I think it's for new people into the hobby or people not like us who don't obsess over every little thing that they
I don't
put
want
out.
new people in the hobby.
We
Yes,
need
we
less
do.
people in the hobby.
Still recording. By the way.
Right. I do want people in the hobby.
Less.
So give me a quick rundown so I don't have to read through. What, in your eyes, is the main class features of a ranger? They're half casters or are they third casters?
They're half.
Half
But
casters.
their
yeah.
spell options are so bad, it's like
This is
being...
really limited.
They're almost entirely utility and like a couple in combat.
Yeah, there's a couple things that impact ranged attacks. And
Right. If I'm completely remembering right, I think it's the Hunter's Mark comes up in almost, regardless of subclass, right?
That's the Hex Warlock type thing
Yeah.
that they use every time they get a chance.
Correct.
Hunter's Mark is a spell.
It still sucks.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
a spell, but
They
again,
have to
that's
pick.
that's their bread and butter, more or less.
Yeah,
where
pretty
most of
much,
their
yeah.
damage is coming
Unless you
from.
make a strength-based melee ranger, then you use that the new spell and Zephyr Strike.
Zephyr Strike.
Yeah,
Yes,
where
that's what
you
I'm
get
saying.
no opportunity attacks, and that was useful and fun as a polearm ranger.
You do have to look at, though, the utility of Dex to every class as compared to the utility of Strength to every class. Because if you're trying to create a sorcerer, you do need Charisma. Now, as a ranger, you need Wisdom. Now, if you're picking between Strength and Dex, one of those is kind of useless, the other one's entirely useless.
Dex is always useful.
Dex is always useful.
Right.
Kind of known as
Strength,
the
not
god
so
stat.
much.
Yeah. So yeah, you probably want to make a Dex-based ranger. Ranged, so you don't need to worry about the high AC.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I guess you always have to worry about it because
More than anything, I mean, you
DMs
just don't
are
want to
jerks.
be a sorcerer who's up in the fight. I feel like almost any time.
Draconic Origin sorcerer is actually decently tanky. They get some nice AC.
I actually like what you were saying about the
Plus your Dex modifier, though,
what's your dex modifier?
for the
For-
Draconic.
Draconic.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that how it
13
works?
plus your Dex.
There you go. All right. Synergy. We found something.
Well, I also you
One.
were saying like the rejection of your origins. So if you are like the dragon sorcerer, then you could have your favorite enemy be dragons.
That'd be
I
cool.
mean, right away.
Incredibly edgy.
Yeah. Yes.
This is D&D. You have to have an edgy character.
Right.
At least at some point, or you're kicked out.
I hate my parents. That's why I hunt my parents.
I've completely lost the sorcerer section.
Are you serious?
I was on languages.
Are you even in the
It's
player's
alphabetical.
handbook? Oh, there you are.
I know, alphabet's hard. Here we are.
The alphabet's hard.
And then, unfortunately, I'm not... I played sorcerers. This was before Xanathar's Guide came out. And so my experience with the extended one and Xanathars are, unfortunately, a little weak. Does anyone have that book?
Xanthers?
It's out, yeah.
Yeah.
I know we all have the book. But
There you go. See, I don't think there's any. There's a storm sorcerer in there,
Yeah, the Storm Sorcerer did good.
which is pretty cool. I don't think its class mechanics really do much for rangers. When you cast a spell, you go 10 feet in the air, and when you cast like lightning and thunder damage, you can do some extra damage.
You've also got Divine Soul, which I've always thought was kind of a dumb theory.
Why?
Was that the healing sorcerer?
Not entirely. But it's more or less almost an inverse of the entire Warlock class. It's like, oh, the gods gave you random magical powers because good guys.
Except for there's also a Celestial Warlock class now, too.
I know, which is just, I don't know.
Also the Shadow Magic Sorcerer, I guess.
Yeah, it just kind of, the gods give you cleric spells.
Yeah, or again, if we want to go with that rejecting your origin conflict thing, the Shadow Magic plays into that really well. Where like, you're a creature of shadow, your innate magic comes from the Shadowfell itself. I mean, that's kind of rife for rejecting that part of you. But as you get older, so you're a ranger through whatever backstory you want there, and that part starts coming out, starts manifesting itself.
Looking at the features, saying 120 feet in the dark, that could be useful if you got to shoot someone in the head.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of blanket useful for anybody, but sure.
You fall over and die, you get back up. That's always useful for literally...
Learn the darkness spell is always a nice kind of various utility. You can always get creative with that.
Yeah, I really like
And
the darkness spell. I think that's actually kind of underrated.
And it doesn't require saves or anything, so you don't need to worry about the low charisma there.
Mm-hmm.
So this is actually, there is an off-brand hexblade that can be made with this.
An off-brand hexblade?
The eyes of the dark from the Shadow Sorcerer Origin.
Which book is that in? Is that...
That's
Xanathar's.
Okay.
You can create an darkness orb and then just go to town with your dual-wieldy ranger bullshit.
You're
But can
assuming that
Yes, if you cast it with sorcerer points.
Which one?
Oh, it does say that. Yeah. In addition, you can cast it by spending 2 sorcery points or by expending a spell slot. If you cast it with sorcery points, you can see through the darkness created by the spell.
That's infinite advantage, my friends.
Wow.
Till they walk away.
Till they walk away.
That's why you just have to use your other...
But then you can pop them from inside while they're on the outside. They're like, oh, now I'm safe. And you're
Yeah.
like,
Oh, yeah, if you're a ranger,
crossbow.
you're just shooting into it, yeah.
That's true.
Good thing to cast on, like, you know, if you're a dynamic battle and the enemies are melee and ranged, cast it on the ranged enemies.
Right.
Give them disadvantage, and you have advantage on shooting them.
That's extremely useful.
That's the that was the general play for Hexblades before they released the official Hexblade class.
Oh.
So you get to be a really crappy Hexblade.
Well, no. You get to be a ranged hexblade.
You get to be a crappy Hexblade with a lot of utility.
With a lot of utility.
Tons of
Say, because rangers actually have a lot of battlefield control, which can be pretty nice.
Do they?
More than sorcerers do.
More than
Right.
butchers.
Well, yeah, since we're trying to keep it official, we have to reject the PDF, the redo
Of the
Ranger
ranger?
class. So if we're talking on so we've been focusing on the sorcerer side of things, what works well with Ranger, but on the Ranger side of things, so Beastmaster, I'm really struggling to make that work. The player handbook Beastmaster is really just not that great anyways.
No, it is not.
The what's it called, Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that one's decent.
Yeah, that was actually like the only one that was worth talking about before they released anything else. So I definitely like Hunter. The Colossus Slayer is pretty useful. That's if it's below its hit point maximum.
Is it
That's just
any
like,
damage or
Yeah.
martial damage?
Um,
When you hit a creature with a weapon attack.
Yeah, so that's the main thing.
So
I
then you
assume that most of this damage would come from you shooting, though.
The martial damage.
Yeah, martial damage. It wouldn't be spell damage.
Yeah, so I mean, there's always that kind of safe fallback where if you're multiclassing martial character with a spellcaster, is the spellcaster you take non-damaging utility spells. Stuff that doesn't require a save or an attack. And then, of course, we have meta magic from the sorcerer, which is always good.
Is it? Is it always good?
Always good. That was a very, bold statement of mine, I guess.
But that requires 3rd level. How
Yeah.
far would you want to go in a sorcerer? My personal inclination, not far at all.
Or you could just do why not far at all?
For thematic reasons, at the very least, rejected sorcerer's origin would be kind of one of those things that's like, oh, I might have been born into this, but I want to be a friend to animals or an enemy to giants. That kind of thing. It's like, I chose to be a park ranger. I didn't choose to be a weird wizard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that actually sums it up.
Unless
pretty
you
well.
go the wild magic origin where you're forced on you and then you realize, wow, I can do a really lot of cool stuff if we keep this up, keep training on it. Wild magic's always fun. This came up 2 sessions ago when we were playing where it's a lot of people hate on it because there's just so much randomness, and I can't believe a whole class is built around it. But if you really look through the table, the majority of them are positive, or just neutral. There's not that many that are terrible.
Oh, 61 through 62. For the next minute, you must shout when you speak. A lot of Rangers, they have trouble being heard. From what just polls I've read.
You also could possibly summon a random unicorn.
Which is extremely useful, actually.
We ended up with 2.
So we're for the Wild Magic Surge, that only happens on sorcerer spells, and if they try and have the Wild Magic Surge happen, correct?
Yeah, sorcerer spells only.
Okay.
But any sorcerer spell, first level or higher, you roll that d20.
Right.
But also at first level Wild Magic Surge, you get Tides of Chaos. That's where you can give yourself advantage.
And then you just have
Then the next time you roll a spell, use a sorcerer spell, you then have to roll on the table.
right.
It doesn't look like it's just a spell.
Or the DM could force you to. Every time we've had this come up, we just kind of roll it where that happens to kind of take it out of that kind of wishy-washy zone of does the DM give it to you or not.
Yeah, I don't trust the DM.
You are the DM half the time.
That's true. And I don't trust me.
Yes, the unicorns. So no one else would know this. We're playing Out of the Abyss. We were in a small dungeon recently where anytime somebody cast a spell, the Wild Magic Surge table was rolled. And it got pretty ridiculous, and we were fighting specters, and a unicorn appeared and kicked a lot of ass and helped things. And then somebody rolled the result where they have to...
1 or a 2.
Yeah, 1 or 2, where for the next minute, you roll on the Wild Magic Surge table every turn, no matter what. So he basically got locked into a room as he just self-destructed in magic surges, and he ended with 2 unicorns with ethereal music following him around, and he floated in the air.
And he's blue now.
Yeah, permanently blue. Yes.
It was like a spa trip, but for a minute and in a tomb.
And I think he stole life out of one of the unicorns.
Yeah, they weren't happy about that.
Yeah, that was kind of forced, and they almost killed him, but then disappeared.
I'm telling you guys, I think the Shadow Magic melee style hunter is probably the best way to go.
I feel like there's more to it than that, though. There are other things we can do.
Are there?
I mean, yeah, the Sorcerer Ranger is not really the top of people's list for good multi-classing options.
Really?
I think that everything multi-class should be at the bottom list of everybody's options because multi-classing is haram.
That's part of why I want to do this, though.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
because we
pretty hard.
are all kind of against multi-classing. It seems like every time we run the numbers and it's like, oh, you could do everything that this does with a class that's already there, and it would do more damage, it would give you more utility, and everything. So that's part of why I want to dive into this and see if there are actually multi-classes that just don't suck.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting we're not here talking about optimization.
Right.
I know that's a whole other conversation of crunching numbers and theory crafting and min-maxing. This is more about interesting characters that make sense from a role-playing perspective and they're viable to the party. Admittedly, it's actually a really low bar. We were talking about it earlier. It's not a detriment to your party, and we consider it a success. There's some of the obvious, really, real obvious synergy, like a Paladin Warlock or something, where with Hexblade, but...
Shouldn't be allowed.
It should not be allowed. But
People
At some point, we're going to get to it, and we're going to figure out.
That it should be banned
Let's
from
not
the
be
entire
D&D
table.
snobs. Come on. This is how you alienate an audience.
I'm a
Okay.
purist. I'm an RP purist, Kevin.
You're not.
I am. That's why all my characters are just blatant archetypes.
Yeah, the Drunk Dwarf playing right now.
Evil Snake Monster.
Yeah. The Salty Warlock. There's been
Salty
5
Warlock.
of those.
I've got like 5 salty warlocks.
Then you had the non-salty... Well, he was interesting.
Yeah, he was
The Enemy of Dragons dude.
Yeah, he was just obsessed with killing dragons. And he was a
He
fighter.
was a warlock?
Yeah, he was a fighter, level 1, warlock for the rest.
Oh,
And he
wow.
This was
became-
before Xanath. Those are just player handbook stuff.
He was an excellent darkness-based hexblade who, as a dragonborn, declared war on his dragon kind after he betrayed his village.
That was the guy with the necrotic horse, right?
No, that was wait. No, that was Curse of Strahd, which I don't even remember.
Okay. Then I guess it doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
None of
None of his name was irregardless, though.
Irregardless was the name of the horse, but that was a totally different character that I do not remember. He might have
I
also
only
been a
remember...
warlock.
I think he was a Paladin, because they could find Steed. I think it. Yeah, the only thing I remember that is irregardless, and
Yeah.
that was in Curse of Strahd.
He was a flesh-eating, rotting horse. So his flesh was just falling off, and he would just
Yeah.
eat the things that we killed. And your character pretended that this was all normal.
It was fitting for Curse of Strahd.
Yeah.
I didn't run that one. None of us did, but I'm pretty sure part of the big flavor is all the spells get themed differently. I had a wizard, and there was the DM had Mage Hand be like a skull, and not a skull, a bone hand, and
Right. Little things like that. Say, Curse of Strahd really is a cool setting. It's just difficult for a campaign that spans so many months because it's just depressing. Or at least the way it was ran for us. Like, oh, we go to this town, we want to buy something, and it's like, no. You
There's
can't
no
have
money.
fun.
All of us are dead.
Yeah.
yeah,
That got old after the
We
fourth
trade
village.
crippling depression.
yeah. So that was ran with a DM who we don't actually play with anymore. He moved away, and none of us here really looked into it after the fact. But we've always kind of wondered: is that really how the campaigns ran, or is that our DM? And if you're listening, bud, I'm sorry, but that campaign got sad.
Kind of sucked.
I died a lot too in that one.
You died a lot.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah. And that's the one where every time you die, we got a new permanent form of madness. Again, I don't know if that was our DM or...
No, I think that was part of the campaign.
Yeah, that guy was really messed up by the end of it. We actually decided to ritualistically kill him out of the campaign just because he was not a viable PC anymore and a good
Aw.
line.
Yeah, it was like a sad old Yeller moment. Maybe where the red fern grows.
Where the red fern grows, he got stuck in a... No, he got mauled by other dogs, dude.
Yeah, Old Yeller is the one where he...
Old Yeller, then. We'll go stick
Old
with
Yeller
that.
there to shoot
Sorry,
him in the
guys.
head.
Old Yeller spoilers. I'm sorry.
Where the red fern grows, he got mauled by other dogs.
Is that
Right.
the one with the raccoon traps?
Yes.
The
which
only
was
thing I
incredibly
remember from
unethical.
that book, I read it and I remember enjoying it. Literally, the only memory I have of that book is describing how a raccoon trap works, where they put the food in there and they stick their little paw in and grab it, and with their fist made, there's not enough space to pull it out. And it works permanently because they're not smart enough to realize to drop the food. They're not willing to do
No,
it.
Kevin, you forgot. You blanked that out. What they do is they pound nails into it
Right.
in like the downward
In a
facing
V.
direction. So even when they do let go of the shiny thing, not the food, because they're weirdos and they're like, oh, a shiny thing.
Yep.
They're like, oh, my entire arm is now filled with nails going the wrong direction.
Is that really in that book?
Yep.
Yes, that's the
think I
ethical
read
way
it
to
in
hunt
fourth grade.
raccoons.
Yes. Hey, man.
I guess I did blank.
I got assigned to illustrate the chapter where the dog gets mauled to death. So I got to draw a beagle bleeding to death in fourth grade.
Fourth grade Kevin suppressing raccoon torture, okay?
Yeah.
In my mind, it was just like, oh, they're just too dumb and cute to pull their hand out. Nope.
Sorry to get back on topic, but I really can't think of a reason to go past third level as a sorcerer.
There isn't one.
You get meta magic, which is cool, gives you some useful casting meta magic-y things, but beyond that, it's just more being a sorcerer.
The more useful you are as a sorcerer, the less useful you will end up as a ranger.
Right, where sorcerers get all their usefulness front-loaded, and you can just coast on that the entire time.
Plus, we've got RP justifications that totally benefit this by like, oh, I reject my sorcerer's ways.
Right. I don't think you're ever going to find
Bam.
somebody who's like level 17 sorcerer, and then one day they just wake up and they're like,
I really like animals.
But man, I hope somebody comes
In
to me
defense
with
of the
that.
Ranger, though, the Beastmaster one is the only one that really has that flavor.
Well,
The other ones are like, there's like the Master Hunters. They actually probably don't really like animals.
why? I mean, most hunters really love animals. Both of
I don't
them,
think that's
the core of the
That's-
class does kind of fit in with the general park ranger archetype in our world.
if you wanted to, but it doesn't have to. That's
Yeah,
kind of
you-
the
if you
benefit
go
of
like
D&D.
edgy ranger, like all I care about is efficiently killing orcs, I guess.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what the hunter class is.
Yeah,
That's-
or giants
I
or
don't
whatever.
They know the wilderness, and they know the thing that they like killing.
Yeah.
Like is probably a strong word, but thing that they are driven to kill.
I don't know. If you rolled a ranger that didn't love animals, I'd kick you off the table.
The Ranger didn't love animals. We played like months and months and months with that guy.
I wasn't paying attention then.
I'd also like to say that we were all pretty against that character.
Yeah,
He was
shit.
fine.
No, he was garbage, and we all knew it.
So
No, he
this
was
was a strength-based half-orc polearm ranger who took the monster hunter subclass in Xanathars. I was trying something different.
Yeah, you were trying to prove a point, if I remember. It's pretty much the point we're proving now.
Point that we should
Which
probably
was-
not invite you to D&D
Just
every week.
more or less, do you need to multi-class to get something that you want? So I think you decided, I don't remember which one, but whatever you were going for would have been, in the eyes of another person we were playing with, better as a multi-class. But you were saying, no, you can do all of this as just a ranger. You just have to do it as like a strength-based ranger, and like, you know, went off the cuff of what the expected class would be just to prove a point. But that's okay. That's a good point to prove sometimes.
It was. And I'm still saying he was viable. I played him aggressively because that's how the character played, and so he died a decent amount if I was more cautious, which I ended up switching to towards the end after he died twice, which RP-wise makes sense. And he survived a lot better.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and he was consistent. It was like he did not have crazy damage spikes or anything like that, but he was consistent. He would consistently put out decent damage at the first encounter of the day and the last encounter of the day. Well, the wizards and sorcerers and stuff are draining. The fighters kept up with me, but there's no fighters, so we don't need to worry about that.
And that was a monster hunter, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is definitely one of the examples. They have kind of moved the ranger from weird park ranger to weird hunter of sorts.
So-
Like, oh, I hate grim magic. Oh, I love living on the horizons.
Go through again the, which sorcerer was that in Xanthars?
The shadow sorcerer.
Shadow Sorcerer. So,
Anyone Xanathars?
yeah, that'd be fantastic.
I have a copy of this book. I'm going to grab it.
But going just
of books on my table.
going
Yeah.
just to level 1, you get Eyes in the Dark, which was that darkness magic, and then Strength of the Grave, which is the pop back up after you get knocked over, if you've got the save for it. Both are useful out of the gates, and that's 1 level.
DC 5 plus the damage you take is pretty useless.
It's not great.
It's just so all over the place. I don't like that. Starting at first level, your existence in a twilight state between life and death makes you difficult to defeat. When damage reduces you to 0 hit points, you can make a charisma saving throw. DC 5 plus damage taken. On a success, you instead drop to 1 hit points. That's the important part. So DC 5 plus damage taken, I mean, at higher levels, that can just be all over the place.
That's
and
trivial.
that's not even saying the damage that went over 0. It's damage taken. So if you were at 15 hit points and you took 20, your DC's 25.
That's marginal utility and very luck-based.
Yeah, and it's useful at low levels, and that's pretty much it.
But that is level 1, and that's
The deadliest levels.
2-feature front-loaded class.
Right. Okay. And I'll give you that. 6th level gives you this Hound of Ill Omen.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
You create a hound who just... Is it essentially like a free Find Familiar?
It's actually isn't that ripped off the Raven
Hexblade?
Queen one? Or the Hexblade? I
Yeah,
can't remember.
it
The
is.
Hexblade got redone, so I don't think they got rid of that, but
They did, yeah. Yep, definitely.
it wasn't exactly the most interesting feature.
No, you just got like a hound that could teleport through shadows and give you some bonus attacks. It was, again, just a Find Familiar that was a little bit more powerful.
We can pause this. It's fine.
Kevin, you can't pause.
Well, no, I'll cut this part out.
Kevin has left the building. And the more we talk, the more difficult it gets for him to cut this out.
Hey man, that's why I said I wasn't editing it. You can say super mean things about Kevin and he won't find out for days though.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I know, right?
Kevin's a big, dumb nerd. Kevin's a big, big, dumb nerd.
Kevin's Strength Ranger was garbage. We all thought it was garbage. We hated him for it. We had fucking multiple house meetings to discuss how to deal with the Kevin problem.
I started
Because
a
that
new
ranger-
campaign.
He started a new campaign just because of one character.
You guys talking about anything worth keeping in the interim?
No, not at all.
Now we are. All right, so at third level, you only know 3 sorcery points.
You only know 3 sources.
You only have 3 sorcery points.
Yeah, it is really limited.
That's extremely limiting, especially for that darkness spell, which we're saying is going to be like...
Short rest, dude.
You get it back on a short rest?
I think so.
Well,
That's
I don't trust you at
worth
all.
verifying. Yeah.
This is a trick for
Yeah.
any new
Will likes
player.
to-
When you finish a long rest.
Oh, I got blown the fuck out.
Page 101 in the player's handbook.
Page 101 in the player's handbook clearly dictates that you violated the rules of Dungeons and Dragons.
I don't know why you're making fun of somebody like that, because we do that all the time.
I
We're
know,
just like-
right? But I make fun of a lot of people who hold my hobbies and values.
So
Just alienating our listeners left and right.
Alienating my friends.
that
too.
makes me think that going up to even 4th level to get that additional sorcery point to be able to do that 2 times a day might be worthwhile.
Well,
And
let's
you're
ask the question, what, even in the situation that all the min-maxers love, where you do reach level 20, which
It
never
never
happens, what are we missing out on with the Ranger? Probably almost nothing.
Probably nothing. High level,
Holy crap, they have absolutely nothing.
their capstone is forgettable, to say the
Foe
least.
Slayer, you become an unparalleled hunter of enemies. You get to add your wisdom modifier to attack and damage rolls.
Which we're already kind of saying is going to
Woo.
be pretty mediocre.
That's the
12
worst
at
thing
most.
I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, level 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, we're not going to add to it. It's going to be charisma and dex.
Yeah.
I'm assuming those are
I
going to be
mean,
the main two,
you
right?
do miss the ability score improvements, which could be a feat, which can be substantial. You know, like you get one at 19 for all classes, and that is on
Yeah.
class level, not character level.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. Even just going to 4th level as sorcerer is... You're going to have
Yeah,
an
you'll
ability
still
score
get it.
improvement
You're
either
right.
way.
You're right.
So going to that 4th would give you the 4th point
Yeah.
sorcery points. You could at least do darkness twice a day.
That's true. And if it doesn't come up, then you have the... It's more situational because you can't do too much, but the utility of your other meta magic
Ability,
options
whatever
are
it is.
like
So you can
careful spell,
you
powered
choose-
spell, but though you're probably not casting really strong damage and stuff.
No, but you get 2 of those. So you can do twin. Twin spells.
Oh,
really
twin
good.
spells always good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're doing any of those that focus somebody specifically,
Yeah.
split that up.
And depending
Um,
on the campaign and the group, subtle spell could sometimes be really good.
Never
Admittedly,
seen anyone take it.
yeah, admittedly, we don't. We probably should.
Yeah.
Like as written, spell casting is a really obvious thing when it happens because they're chanting and like in different languages and gesticulating wildly.
Mecha lecca hi, mecha hiney ho.
Basically, it's really, really obvious. We kind of always glaze over that. But if you didn't, if you were better D&D players than us, and you actually, you know, when you cast a spell, make it obvious, subtle spell could have a lot of good uses.
Right, but I still think that compared to something like extended spell is kind of iffy. I'd rather something that's, you know, consistently
Yeah.
useful except for subtle spell, which is like very situational.
Yeah.
And
well, quicken spell is always great.
Quickened's great. I really like Quickened.
Yeah.
So I'd say Quickened and Twinned are probably going to be your best bets.
Yeah, except for you're going to be pretty limited on Twin. Doesn't that cost a lot?
1 sorcery point if it's a cantrip for each level over it costs.
So if it's like first level costs 2, second
Mhm.
level 3.
Yep. So, I mean, I'd have to look at what spells to take exactly, but Distance Spell could be somewhat useful, because that's at least 1 sorcery point to double the range of a 5-foot or greater spell. No, because you have to cast 1 more. Oh, no, one to make a range
What
of touch 30
situation
feet.
would you not be better off using your longbow?
Literally never. Literally never. You got me there.
And just to clarify, it actually is a sorcery point per spell level. So it's 1 sorcery point for to twin a first level, 2 for a second. It's not 1 plus.
Where does it say that? It says 1 sorcery point if the spell is a cantrip.
Well, yeah, that's a clarification. Read the actual rule for it. You can spend a number of sorcery points equal to the spell's level to target a second creature.
Oh.
So it's
that
just letting
seems
you know
crazy.
cantrips are not free to do.
Right,
that,
that
which
makes
would
sense.
also be insane.
Yes, it would.
So to circle back on the role-playing aspects we were talking about, where it seems to make the most sense, where you have most levels in Ranger plus the Sorcerer's Origin thing, where it comes to you later through the wild magic, or you're rejecting it, but you have some innate abilities. To swap that, where you have a decent amount of levels in Sorcerer, where they're the typical Sorcerer for a while, accepting their origins or magical sorcerer, whatever, then something happens in their story where they basically become a recluse. They're, like the Hammer backstory type stuff.
Can you explain what happens, Kevin?
And that's up to the individual character.
I know, but let's hear some ideas. Why would they do that? Why would they become a recluse?
A sorcerer
Maybe-
becoming a recluse, sorry to cut you off, but immediately makes me think that they're going to be a recluse who keeps being a sorcerer.
But if they're living in the wilderness alone, they need to learn some survival abilities.
Okay. All right. Well, that's
But
so
then
mixing.
again, I mean, I guess learning to survive is more just like proficiency in their survival than full-blown, I'm a ranger hunter and a colossus slayer now.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I would
I
say
mean,
it goes with Beastmaster. You're right.
Yeah.
But we already decided Beastmaster is kind of just not worthwhile.
Hot
From a
steaming garbage.
role-playing perspective, you're totally right. That would be the best way to do it.
But yeah, looking at any of the subclasses you have available, I can't think of a single reason that a magic god would go into the forest and be like, oh, you know what, I'm going to be a Gloomstalker. That seems pretty cool and edgy.
All right, I'm not talking like level 18,
Planar
19.
warrior of some
They
sort.
take like they're like a level 5 sorcerer at this point, and they've been going out farther in their ability. Let's say they're a wild magic sorcerer, and they're trying to do a spell to help a village, and it goes wrong, and they get that terrible, terrible roll of casting fireball on themselves, and they end up destroying all their friends and family.
It
And
happens
it's a terrible
to the best
travesty.
of us.
So they flee their village and decide they're going to live alone, and so they don't hurt anybody anymore. While they're out there, maybe the area they choose to live is a cursed forest, a haunted forest full of terrible monsters, and it's a hard life, and they gain a proficiency in slaying monsters, and they multi-class into the Monster Hunter Ranger. It could be an interesting character. How you pull them back into a standard D&D adventure, it depends on the specifics. But
Why'd you meet us in a bar to do a random, mid-level adventure?
But like I said, it would be a character for a campaign that
No.
gets pulled in for a specific reason.
I would give you that because that would offer some character redemption moments, which always feel nice, where it's like they want to cast magic, but they're surrounded by their party, but it's a very important moment, and then they also just explode everyone again. And,
I'm sorry, Master. I'm going to go all out just this once.
Perfect. No, that's possible. So you're saying that would be Hunter still?
No, he's saying that's Monster
Hunter.
Slayer.
Yeah, Monster Hunter, Monster. I always
Is that in
forget their
Xanthars?
names.
Yeah, it's in
okay.
Xanthars. Xanthars got a bunch of edgy Ranger crap. Monster Slayer, you slay monsters.
Well, I think the
Horizon Walker.
Horizon Walker is the one. Yeah, that's
Just nonsense. It's
Actually,
just
the
nonsense.
Horizon Walker, that could synergize just from role playing perspective with Sorcerer decently.
right.
Because unless I'm remembering incorrectly, they're dealing with kind of Fey magic and kind of going in and out of the Fey and stuff like that.
right.
Which if you have a sorcerer who has their innate ability, which they start getting an interest in the Fey, because there are spells that interact with that.
Yeah, you could look at it and say, hey, I was a dragon blood sorcerer who was recruited by a good dragon to defend the planes from cross-planar travel. But at the same time, you're looking at a really, really, really oddly specific subclass that I would never advise anyone take.
Why?
Like,
The Horizon Walker? You
yeah,
don't like
it's
it?
not good.
I've seen worse.
3rd level, you get to detect portals.
That's okay.
That's like an NPC level ability. I'm here to defend against portals. Well, we're trying to track down a bandit king who doesn't know what portals are. It's like, oh, well, if there's any portals, I'll know.
They get some cool spells. Horizon Walker spells. Protection from evil and good. Always has its good uses. Misty Step.
Okay.
Haste. Banishment.
All right. Those banishment is not great.
What? No,
No?
banishment's great.
No,
dude.
banishment is
It's
not,
not
as good
for
as
a
bless.
13th level reward.
That's at 13th level.
They're
Banishment's where you
half-casters,
send them
yeah.
into a
Oh,
new plane.
banishment. I'm
Not
sorry. I was thinking
Bane.
Bane. My bad.
No, Banishment.
Banishment. Yeah. Okay. That's just like you're out of this for like 60 seconds or something.
Yes.
Yeah, something like that. Unless they are I think it's a minute.
Yeah.
Which
Unless they're
isn't
from
your
somewhere
combat.
else.
Yeah,
Then
unless
they're
they're
gone
from
forever.
another thing and you keep the spell concentrated for a minute, they're just gone.
Yeah.
And when you get to those higher levels, it's not that ridiculous to be fighting things from other planes of existence.
No,
Especially
that's
when
fair.
you're a planar warrior defending the planes.
What was that monster we were just looking at the other day in Mordekainen's? That was like the thing that stays on the what plane was? Hey, perfect. Astral Dreadnought.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, just banish the astral
Actually, I
dreadnought.
think he specifically has something in that massive
No, that
stat
it
block
can't
about
be.
how it
yeah.
can't be banished.
Yes, I know. I'm saying like that's if you were.
If it somehow got out of the astral plane, it'd be more inclined just to go home than anything else.
Yeah.
It's a giant ship-eating crab.
That's what would make it great, though. It's just like everybody thinks that it's going to be some epic fight, and then the Ranger's just like, "Whoa, I can send you back, no problem. I got this.
Really?
Banish."
And for those of you who don't obsess over the monster stat books like us, the Astral Dreadnought's what, like a 26?
21.
21.
I thought it was higher than that.
No, it's real casual, dude.
But it's the classic, really beefy monster that has like 500 HP and 22 or 23 AC.
It's got like 200 HP. It's not that bad, but
It's
if
pretty
it
bad.
crits on you, you immediately die.
Yes, there's that aspect of it.
That's a pretty big one.
Yeah.
It's not even true.
Jared's
it is.
flipping to it.
It's important
Flip
now.
faster, Jared.
I know. I opened to it the very first try. Challenge 21. It won't leave the astral plane. It just won't.
Yeah, just
So
it can't.
that's the thing.
Yeah.
It just ruins anything you want to do with it. You're like, wow, look at this amazing creature that has an entire page and a half dedicated to it. And it's like, well, how do you fight it? You ever just hang out on the astral plane? You know all those campaigns.
It's
you
literally
started?
But no, it has to be built around a campaign. It'll be like the pre-boss before the big bad evil guy.
Oh, I want a terrestrial version
there-
of this. It's called the Terresk. It's existed since the 70s.
What's its hit points?
297,
Okay. AC?
20, which
Okay.
I mean that's not
not
the point of it.
Crazy, actually.
It's the fact that it does 5d10 plus 9 on its bite attack that it can do twice a turn.
Oh,
and
Once a
when it
turn.
send you
crits-
to the demi-plane of its stomach.
And also, if you're in the astral plane, it can just cut your silver cord if you're using astral projection. So you have to get to the astral plane through another way, or else it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
See, it's so specific, but
Yeah.
it's so cool.
Yeah, astral projection that has it's a spell that sends you to the astral plane. It has this neat little caveats where you have the silver cord that extends from you, and nothing could really manage
It's
or hurt
invisible.
it. Yeah, but if it's cut somehow, you immediately die, and that's the end of the character. And then, of course, this monster has the ability to just do that if it crits. Woo.
So my suggestion for anybody who's like, you know what, I really want to use this on anywhere but the astral plane, the regular dreadnought. It's the exact same as the astral dreadnought, but it's regular, so it lives somewhere else.
This is not in any book, is it? You're just
No, it's the end of the modification. It's called
Okay.
the regular dreadnought. Biggest difference, he lives somewhere else.
I can't really argue with that too much. Fair enough. You just take away
Think the
that.
crew of the ship all screaming, "It's the regular dreadnought! He's not limited to the astral plane!"
I guess D&D is kind of open like that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. You can just make shit up.
So what I'm really getting at is that Horizon Walker's kind of useless.
Yeah, no, it's a pretty crappy class.
Okay. Glad we're all on the same page there. So how many levels are we going to say? Are we doing like up to 20?
I mean, theoretically, obviously.
obviously.
Obvious.
No, here's the
campaigns
issue with
don't get to
multi-class. You look at these multi-classes in any regular, normal, mentally hinged campaign that normal people would play, it's going to be a progression of levels. Where when you look at a multi-class, for it to flavor right, for it to actually end up right, you're so dependent on a certain combination of all these ingredients. It's like baking a cake with like teaspoons of flour and sugar at a time and adding it while you're cooking. It's never going to turn out right. That's why you have to go either front-loaded one level and the rest level is going to be whatever other class you pick, or mid-level start and then switch over.
Right. And, I think it's fair to say that most people kind of start off at like level 5 or so. At least 3.
I think 3 is a common one.
Yeah,
a lot of people skip 1 and 2.
Right. 'Cause, they're just generally not that fun. But it could also be just like something that happens on very early on in your progression. But I agree. It's anytime somebody's going back and forth, it always just feels extremely
Dumb.
dumb is one way to put it. I was going to say forced. It's very forced where
This level I take my upgrade in Ranger, and the next level I take it in Sorcerer, and then back to Ranger. Yeah.
right.
It always
Right.
feels
So I
weird.
think in this perfect setting, if we do the front-loaded sorcerer, it'd be like starting at level 5, and level 5 you've taken 1 level in Ranger, and boom, called into adventure. Like that's the perfect time to do it. Any other way, you're gonna have a really hard time shoehorning that into your campaign, where you're like walking around and you're like, oh, being a sorcerer is really hard.
I'm going to be a recluse and devote myself to rangerdom. You've been like in a party for 4 years. You spent 2 months in a cabin and learned how to pick berries. That doesn't count as being a ranger.
But I guess you could argue, though, if it's you're a sorcerer enjoying this adventuring party, and the adventure has you living mainly in the wilderness, you could start. Especially if there's another ranger in the party. start training from them. I mean, there's that whole aspect, which is not official.
No, I know.
Rules as written, but
No, it's not. The downtime revisited is intense on absolutely everything. But that's an entire conversation for itself.
Yeah, let's not get into that.
Yeah.
Episode 2. Why multi-classing is stupid, but we will be continuing this particular segment.
Multi-classing isn't stupid. I think this would be very cool if you start off at a higher level. If you're starting at 1, it's going to be really, really hard to work that in and get to some good, proper levels. Otherwise, you're starting at 1 level of Sorcerer, completely ignoring meta magic, which is just downright impossible if you're going to play a Sorcerer. But I think we've got something worked out. I wouldn't be upset if somebody came to the table in a level 5 starting party with this idea. But this
Good
one
to know.
very specific idea.
Yes.
But we've concluded that my idea was great and you guys are done with the Shadow Sorcerer thing.
Shadow Sorcerer was fine. The Shadow Sorcerer Ranger, that's what I think is so far the most viable one that we've come up with.
And
Or again, the Monster Hunter with Sorcerer. Monster Hunter just has decent stuff, especially against individual strong enemies and spellcasters for sure. They get that D6 that they can add on the damage. The supernatural defense where they could add 1d6 to their roll against saves against spellcasters. All that stuff's just universally useful regardless of what you're multi-classed with.
Right. I'd say
Magic users Nemesis where you could essentially counterspell them as a reaction.
yeah, that one's good. I remember you using that a lot. It was rather frustrating.
Yes.
As me being the DM, so I think I do like the flavor of the Draconic Origin Sorcery. I don't think it's super great mechanically, but it does sound cool, like doing a rejection of your bloodline, and there's at least that, and you're now the enemy of dragons. Cool. I mean, it's not going to get you as far as a lot of other multi-classes, but I don't think you're going to be holding back the party specifically.
Yeah.
Just a little bit useless.
Yeah. Will, do the line.
Are you the enemy of dragons? Only people who were playing that campaign 3 years ago with the other 6 people would ever get that joke, Kevin.
But it's great.
It is a great joke.
That's how
And
he
it was-
introduced himself.
The only way to play Horde of the Dragon Queen and not want to walk into traffic. Because it was a shit campaign, and unless you were obsessed with hating dragons, it was not fun at all.
But we played it for like almost a year and a half
I
straight.
know. I've done a
And
lot of
we
things for a
enjoyed-
year and a half straight that I really regret.
I mean, we enjoyed ourselves.
It was all right.
It was my first campaign.
Yeah.
It was hugely disappointing at the end, that's for sure.
Yes.
Everybody died.
Well, you could argue we really screwed it up, or the DM didn't really give us what was not very forgiving.
Something that I see a lot is like, you can be the DM who goes like, well, my players didn't get it, so I'm going to move on. Or you can be the one who's like, hey, we're all here to have fun. So you just bash your players over the head with clues on what to do, with like an NPC coming up before and being like, hey, that's going to be really tough. Maybe you should cast Hold Person and try and pull off their mask before letting them die. Because, they disappear if they just die. That'd be great to know beforehand. But if you don't get that kind of stuff, you're just going to make a really bad campaign.
I would imagine there's some sort of balance.
My favorite
There
part
is definitely
of Lord of the
balance.
Rings was when they did not figure out the puzzle going into Mordor and all got killed by a squid. That was really just like DM purity right there.
No, but I mean, that's, as Kevin's saying, there is a balance because there is nothing fun about having an easy campaign. You don't want it to be just like you walk down the street and kill everything and it's no problem. All the puzzles just unlock the second that you think about them for 30 seconds because you rolled an intelligence check that was high enough after your 5th roll. That's not fun. That's not what people want to do.
Or the dreaded DM PC, where they tag along and they have ultimate knowledge on the world and just kind of tell you how to do everything and are stronger than the entire party.
But you know what's the
Yeah.
absolute worst? Ending a year and a half long campaign by getting curb stomped by a challenge rating 130 enemy that you have no hope of defeating.
Yeah, that was a completely worthless fight. There was
That
no
session
point.
could have just been a narration from the DM. Your failures leading up to this particular event have caused an impossibility for your party. You're all brutally murdered with no input from any of the players.
And if anyone wants to know what we're talking about, look up the non-weekend Tiamat stat block. And we were, level 11 at the time? 12?
We almost got to 13, friendo.
No, it ends at 14, I'm almost positive.
Okay, we were probably
We
around
were
there.
less than half the challenge rating of the big boss.
Yes.
And she had a bunch of enemies and with her as well.
Yeah.
And layer actions and...
So, enough about this, because it's making me sad. Do we want to switch over to talking about...
Monster
monster?
of the Week!
Woohoo!
That was ad-lib. We're probably not going to do that again.
So, I've been looking through Mordekainen's Tome of Foes, and came across one particular one. Actually, almost every page is amazing. But one in particular really sparked my interest.
Elves!
Except for the elves. The Bone Claw. And could you give me a page number?
121.
121 in Mordekainen's Tome of Foes. If you don't have this book, get it. To go through a brief overview, just even reading the first paragraph here. Bone Claw. It's a wizard who tries to become a lich, but
Could it be a
fails.
sorcerer?
Might become a Bone Claw instead. It doesn't specify, but I think I'd allow it.
I'd
But-
allow my sorcerer ranger to try and fail and be a lich. I
If
could
we're
see
really
him
going to have
failing
this
at a lot of things.
conversation, I would say it would be the rare sorcerer who could pull off being a lich. Because it requires an immense amount of forbidden knowledge and studying and practice. And that's all in the realm of being a wizard.
Or
Yes.
the realm of living alone in the woods.
That's true. Yeah. Actually, yeah, with the hermit background, like the one
Monster
special
hunter.
feature is they've gathered some sort of forgotten lore. Like it's actually written in the player handbook.
Guys, I really want to talk about the Bone Claw.
Bone claw. It has bones and claws.
Yes, it's a failed lich. The really key thing to this, limited immortality. When a lich, or when this Bone Claw is created, its body finds the most hateful person nearby and just kind of turns into a horrifying creature that is now a slave to this person. They can either be fully aware of it and start controlling this terrible creature to do its bidding, or they could be very unaware, terrible things happening around them, and they're not really sure why. So, give me some thoughts. How do you feel about this Bone Claw?
Definitely would make for a really cool second tier campaign, or starting even at level 1 and building up to taking the thing down. I mean, it's challenge rating 12, so this isn't like a threaten the entire city type of monster, but definitely the countryside, individual villages.
Yeah, I think a village is definitely your best place to start.
Yeah.
Just because it is small and, it breed a lot of insecurity throughout the village where people are wondering, like, what's happening? Why is somebody dying every single night? And just have it come up at night, kill somebody, goes back to their master, and it's up to the PCs to figure out what's going on here.
It doesn't specify that they have to kill every night.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
But
It
I
can be
think,
very-
I think that's one of the big mistakes a lot of TMs make is somebody's dying every single night. It's like, there's 75 people in this village. This is not a long-term problem.
Right.
This is not sustainable in any way. But yeah, no, this constant horrifying hunter threat, because the entire character is based off of sneaking around and dragging people off into the darkness to be eviscerated brutally. That's pretty fucking epic.
Right, definitely. Say, I think what could be cool is just have a village where, things have been kind of going on for a while, like you said, not every single night, and they're at the point where they're instilling martial law. People aren't allowed to go out after dark because they know that if you're in a dark alleyway at night, you're getting killed. So they avoid it for the most part, but every once in a while, it finds its way into somebody's house, something like that. Adventurers walk on through, and I don't know, maybe even have an encounter with it one of the first nights because they're unaware of the issues going on. I like the idea of it's obviously challenge rating 12 to start here, but you could definitely kind of cut some things in half here and make it get progressively stronger because one of the things is the rejuvenation ability, which is while its master lives, a destroyed Bone Claw gains a new body in 1d10 hours with all of its hit points. The new body appears within 1 mile of the Bone Claw's master. So even if they kill it, it's just coming back, and the PCs have no reason to know that. And it just would be a really great setup for them to either track down what exactly this thing is, find out who its master is. I mean, this could be weeks.
Yeah, definitely. And especially send them off on... I guess as the DM, you don't even specifically do it. You just kind of, here's the set of evidence, And some of it is just a red herring because that's how this stuff works. And the PCs will probably end up going off on various tangents, which are kind of make little side quests to make the whole campaign more fleshed out and interesting. Then it's just like this really focused murder mystery thing if you want to spread it out.
Mm-hmm.
I also like the aspect of it where the master of the Bone Claw, there's a really good chance they won't know.
Right.
And even in Mordekainen's, I always screw up that name.
Mordekainen's Tome of Foes.
Yes, that. Mordekainen's Tome of Foes. Even, and this isn't us just trying to be all edgy and dark, it talks about like a cruel child can end up being the Bone Claw's master. And so you can play it where it's this kid who has a really tough home life and he bullies and he's full of a lot of hate because he's a kid and doesn't know how else to do it, becomes this unwitting Bone Claw master. And this Bone Claw is going out and killing this kid's enemies and people who are mean to him. And it's a really terrible, dark thing, but it could make for an interesting campaign.
Especially the dark conclusion of this. Because how do you kill a Bone Claw, Kevin?
You killed the master.
You kill the master. Now, there is another way. It does say, no matter what happens to a Bone Claw's body, it reforms within hours and returns to whatever duty its master assigned. The Bone Claw can serve only evil. If its master finds redemption or sincerely turns away from the path of evil, the Bone Claw is permanently destroyed. So it leaves that open for a feel-good ending, but I just would really make it tough for PCs to find that out. I mean, this is something that they would need to do some intense research in some weird places to figure out what a Bone Claw even is, let alone how to kill it in the happy, feel-good way.
Right. And I mean, we'll keep it, that does depend on the campaign. We kind of seem to have a tendency to shift our campaigns, exploring kind of darker stuff and more anti-heroes and
Definitely.
stuff like that. A lot of people do like to play just the good heroes.
Right, that's what I'm saying. The option is there. I'm saying
Right.
how I would do it, the more fun way would be to do that.
Again, alienating our listeners.
Well, once again,
Nothing bad
these
about
facts are totally opaque to any player character who doesn't religiously read these handbooks or listen to randos talk about them. So you would have to force them to be like, hey, maybe if we get this kid on our side and like, hey, Mr. Boneclaw, stop killing killing the kids I pick on.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, kid, see all those eviscerated corpses? You did that in a way. So what are you going to do? You going to just keep being a dick? And if the kid's like, yeah, then you're like, you smack him. It's a kid. That's the easy, good route that you can create with this character.
And now everyone's seeing why our campaigns turn dark so quickly.
And then you look at like a more complex one. Maybe the leader of the town became evil because it's so tough to live there. Do you want to throw chaos into the entire equation? Maybe the biggest landlord in the area technically counts as lawful evil. Who's going to maintain those properties as soon as you cave his head in with a warhammer? It's a great way to make evil characters project the DM's personal views of morality on the player base.
It really is. That's true.
Also, it has reach.
Also, it has reach. To speak more mechanically, because honestly, this is such a just wide array of things that you can do with this Bone Claw from a campaign standpoint.
Or just
focusing in
single adventure even.
Single adventure, yeah. However you want to do it. I mean, I think personally I'd dedicate probably like 4 sessions max to it. You could make an entire campaign, but that's going to be really tough to stretch. Mechanically speaking, it is a cool monster because it has shadow jump, which is something that's so edgy, but I love it. So it has the ability to grab somebody within 5 feet and teleport 60 feet away to an unoccupied space, and it can bring one of those creatures with it. So that's just offering so much tension as a DM that you can create where maybe somebody usually stands near a specific person because, the wizard is afraid to be out by themselves. Great reason. Wizards shouldn't be by themselves. I don't care. I'm going to grab onto you, teleport 60 feet away, and try and deal with me now.
Yeah. Maybe you just call that the end of combat. It's like, hey, you just dragged your friend off.
That'd be great.
And that's horrifying. It's like, oh, crap. Add some tension to it, too.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Use that wonderful chase scene they recently added.
Yeah, I actually saw that.
Recent?
Yeah.
That's in the DMG.
No, they went way farther into detail about how to do an urban chase scene.
I have it in Dragon Heist. Dragon Heist.
Oh, that recent. Okay.
Yeah.
Haven't read that yet.
I just started. It's pretty good, but that's a different conversation. They did add specific mechanics for doing a chase, and it has like a table of making it interesting.
Okay.
Which can always be fleshed out. But for an urban chase scene, yeah, definitely. I think the running after... what was I saying? We're live in 3, 2...
Wait. So the page before, we've got the Burble Lane. Look at its HP. Look at what you roll.
What? It's
1d8.
Minus 11.
Yeah, it's got -1 Constitution. So for each D8 you roll, you just do -1.
That's just bizarre to me.
Yeah, that happens pretty frequently, though. They just, like most PCs, try and keep Constitution higher.
I don't think I've seen something that high level that did not have fucking
It's
Constitution.
challenge rating 2.
I know, but it's got fucking... How many hit die? 11, I guess?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's just got... I don't know what it has.
What a weird dude.
Yeah.
But not as cool as the Bunclaw.
Not as cool as the Bone Claw.
Keep going.
Yeah, that's fine with me. Deadly Reach. It also has pretty much the Sentinel ability.
No, it has the polearm.
Polearm Master, thank you. So 15-foot reach.
15?
Yeah, it's 15-foot reach. So when somebody enters into its reach, it can make that claw attack against them. And if it hits, can make a second claw attack against the target. So that alone is terrifying. You can set up so many things with that, where if you do have something like a chase scene, you can have them just like reach out of the shadows and just rip you apart, rip somebody apart, and have them just instantly jump away. And there's so much just flavor to this one page. I appreciate it so much.
All that being said, mechanically, it is kind of a one-trick pony.
One-trick pony. It's
it
got at least 4 tricks on this one page, Kevin. Name the one trick.
The shadow jump, the grab and grapple. And
Oh, no. But we've also got crowd control, where they stop people from entering its range without taking damage. And we've got the DM's revenge against rogues.
Well, it doesn't stop them. So if somebody enters the range and it gets an attack, and then they stay in the range.
Right,
And
that's true. They can keep moving.
Yeah.
But it makes it much scarier. I mean, when that thing is doing potentially, it'd be 60, 10 plus 8 if 2 hit, and you're getting grappled.
If it wants to grapple.
If it wants to grapple, which it'll want to grapple, I'm telling you, it's going to grapple. That makes it just terrifying for your melee combatants.
Especially because it can leave their range so easily.
Right.
And every time they have to go back and re-enter the range of this character.
And it's not even like you're going to have polearm, which has a 10-foot reach, and be able to deal with this thing.
Unless you tie the spear to a whip.
Unless you tie the spear to a whip.
So that's all true, but I could see it becoming kind of a tedious encounter where it just keeps repeating the same thing. It uses its shadow step and its reach to its advantage, and then it gets swarmed with stuff and it grabs someone, teleports away, and then it gets swarmed, and it just kind of keeps repeating that. And then also, especially because how this is written, it very sounds like a solo creature.
Right.
It doesn't really lend itself to having minions and stuff like that. And as we've encountered so much in 5e, having one single large enemy against your party is just disastrous. They just absolutely stomp that enemy. You could be killing stuff. Like a party, a level 7 or level 8 party could kill this thing probably pretty easily, unless you don't actually play it like a fight.
Well, I think one thing that I kind of mentioned was starting off with it being weaker and introducing new mechanics as you get through, as well as giving it more health and damage potentially. I think that's where that kind of comes in. Where you're right, if you just walk into a dungeon and you find a bone claw and you fight a bone claw, you're gonna be like, "Wow, that was a really boring fight."
No, but even I think it leads to an anticlimactic battle. So you do this whole you're looking into a thing, and at some point, I guess maybe you don't have to. Maybe that's how you save it. Because I was thinking at some point you have to have a battle with full strength bone claw before figuring out how you handle the master, but maybe not.
No, the climax isn't the fight with the bone claw.
Right, that's true.
Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah.
The fight with the bone claw doesn't end the bone claw.
That's true.
Right.
Okay.
So I could see it getting tedious after the 4th time, having not figured out who the hell is controlling the bone claw. It's like, wow, I'm really sick of fighting this bone claw. But it's got enough power to keep your PCs wounded for like a week and a half. So you got to appreciate that at the very least.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it would be a scary thing to run into. Like, so if it's challenge rating 12, so if you throw a party low 12s at it,
medium encounter.
Yeah, it's fine. But like level 7, maybe level 8, like with the damage it's doing, that's scary stuff.
Yeah,
I'll give you that. You want to avoid fighting it because yes, you could get its 127 health and 16 AC down pretty quick, but how many people is going to take out in the meantime?
Right. And I think what you also have to look at is, again, a direct confrontation isn't always going to be the best way to go about this type of thing.
Yeah.
Where you can have chases, where there's tons of dynamic things happening in this very, very different encounter. I think the less time that you're having a direct confrontation with the Bone Claw is what makes it more interesting, because they're going to be needing to search for things, and you can make them have to go out at night for whatever reason that may be, and it's all about avoiding darkness. That's a big thing too, because it hides in dim light or darkness. So maybe you're having to hold out a lantern as you walk around, searching for clues at night, like the gang in Scooby-Doo, and your light goes out. And now what do? You're out in the darkness. You've got no way to maybe recreate this light. Maybe you do. I mean, that's part of the thing. You got to figure it out. And it just, again, creates this dynamic thing of maybe it does come out. And you're in combat, and you're like, oh God, we need to make a light source like right now, or else this thing's going to attack us.
Yeah. You can also set up some really cliche but cool to play out in D&D horror story moments where, so maybe the master gets an idea of who you are, but not to the point where they full blown hate you. Maybe there's part of them where it's like, I hope they find me out to stop me type deal.
Right.
So the Bone Claw gets an interest in you, but not outright attack you and kill you.
Right.
And so there's moments like you're asleep in the inn, and I'm getting a real Slender Man vibe from this thing.
Where
So
you're just
you wake up in the middle of the night from a high enough perception check, and it's just chilling in the corner in the darkness.
Passive perception. You don't do a check if you're sleeping. It's
Fair.
passive.
Thank you for clarifying. That changes the entire
This is
dynamic.
the gritty stuff that we're here to talk about,
Important
Kevin.
conversation.
And it's just standing in the corner of your room in the
Right.
darkness, just
Yeah.
watching you.
Yeah.
And you wake up and you think you see it, and poof, it's gone.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Or you just, I mean, there's so many things. It just keeps going, Kevin.
No, it's a phenomenal horror character. And the key to it, though, is definitely the fact that you will never engage in a fair one-on-one, everybody knows what the stakes are fight with this thing, because it's designed to hide in a barrel and then cut your head off.
Right. You're talking about surprise rounds now, too.
It's like a spider
Oh,
with
yeah.
a skeleton body.
Creepy.
That's terrible.
Yeah, it is terrible. Maybe even more like a house centipede.
Yeah, its picture is terrifying. Yeah, 121.
Hold it up to the
Morning
microphone, Kevin.
If anyone wants to check it out.
Or just Google it, man.
Yeah, so once again, I'll agree. Direct confrontation, not super exciting if you're continuously doing this every night, every week, whatever. But the things that you can do leading up to those confrontations are what really just make this a great horror character. And since Halloween is coming up, I think I might need to work this in.
This is the D&D community's favorite thing. What's a fun horror adventure to have around Halloween?
Mm-hmm.
There you
There
go,
it
Bone
is.
Claw, folks.
Give it the Bone Claw.
Or just Shia LaBeouf.
Shia LaBeouf. Oh,
You
we
guys
did that
did.
once.
Yep.
Yeah, we did.
It wasn't around Halloween. That was again with the DM who's we don't play with anymore. That was
DM who shall not be named.
actually that was a fun one.
Yeah,
That was one he just
it's super
made up on
fun.
the fly. That was
Well, I mean, he blatantly used the character block posted on our D&D, but
he claimed that he came up with it.
he did not.
I don't trust him. So,
You can easily look these things up.
all right.
So I think that's everything with the Bone Claw.
I think that's everything that we want to talk about today.
Yeah.
So, thanks for listening, our humble followers. You've been great. We've been better.
This is the most awkward ending to a podcast.
I know, right? Because
I've
it has
ever
no
heard.
need to end.
Yeah.
Just fucking cut it, dude.
Just
Yeah.
cut it.
Yeah.